The dense, humid and ancient Willamette National Forest in Oregon is a sanctuary of Douglas firs, red cedars and giant ferns. It is a place where time seems to slow down and nature dominates with an untamed force. However, in a remote sector of the forest known to rangers as the Valley of Silence, nature had just revealed a secret that was neither biological nor geological, but unnatural and terrifying. Give it a like, subscribe, and share. Let's begin. The discovery was fortuitous. A team of foresters from the United States Forest Service was conducting a routine inspection after a severe storm that had felled 150 trees. In a clearing created by the fall of a giant cedar, the foreman, Mr. Thomas Lee, noticed that the exposed earth was not the usual mix of peat and volcanic rock. There was a geometric anomaly embedded beneath the roots. It was a concrete slab of a pale grey color and a surprisingly modern composition, approximately 3 meters by 3 meters, which did not match any known forest or military construction in the area. The Forest Service notified the Oregon Department of Archaeological Resources, which in turn summoned Dr. Vivian Holloway, an archaeologist from Portland University, specializing in historical and post-colonial sites. Dr. Holloway, a woman in her 50s with a reputation for scientific pragmatism, arrived at the scene expecting to find the remains of a clandestine Cold War military base, or perhaps a testing dump from the 1970s. What she found left her speechless and began to weave a mystery that defied all logic. The concrete was a polymer compound with reinforcing fibers that, according to initial analysis, was not used in conventional construction until the 21st century. The slab had been deposited perhaps 50 years ago, but its design suggested a level of insulation and sealing technology of an extreme degree. After 3 days of controlled excavation, the slab was removed with a crane. Beneath it, they found the entrance to a vertical shaft about 2 meters in diameter, lined with marine-grade stainless steel, completely pristine and hermetically sealed, with a titanium lid that was activated by a Swiss precision mechanical gear system. The complexity of the sealing machinery, which used 32 small nickel titanium springs to ensure constant atmospheric pressure and a perfect seal, demonstrated a level of funding and secrecy far exceeding any known private or governmental enterprise in the region. The terror began with the absence of records. Dr. Holloway and Federal Agent Smith from the Department of Homeland Security, called due to the nature of the technology, tracked down every infrastructural, military, and energy blueprint in the state. The shaft did not exist in any governmental, private, or intelligence record. It was a clandestine and orphaned structure built with elite resources and technology. No one in the chain of command wanted to claim authorship of this costly hidden infrastructure. The fear was not of what it contained, but of who had built it and why they had abandoned it. 1. The descent and the impossible architecture. After obtaining the highest security clearances from Washington D.C, the team prepared for the descent. The shaft extended vertically for 60 meters before opening into a horizontal chamber. The atmosphere inside was cold and dry. The chamber of silence and obsidian. Dr. Holloway and Agent Smith descended first. The chamber was of a chilling geometric perfection, approximately 8 meters by 8 meters. The walls were not concrete or rock. They were lined with polished black obsidian slabs, a volcanic glass known for its electromagnetic shielding properties. Acoustic absorption. The most immediate and disorienting effect was the absolute silence. The obsidian, combined with the polymer concrete insulation, created a perfect anechoic space. The team's voices died a meter from their mouths, forcing whispered radio communication. The chamber was not only isolated from the outside world, it was designed to isolate its occupants from themselves, suggesting the need to prevent interference from any external or internal electromagnetic or vibratory field. The biological mural. One wall of the chamber was not covered in obsidian, but in a continuous mural painted with pigments that preliminary analysis identified as coagulated blood and vegetable carbon mixed with animal resin. The mural was not art, but a sequence of terrifying diagrams. It showed living organisms, humans, animals, at various stages of cellular disintegration and mutation, with arrows indicating a transfer of energy or consciousness toward a central point of the mural, represented by a black light vortex. The mural was a manual of biotransference or sacrifice in the form of art. The symbols used to denote the energy of consciousness were strikingly similar to modern data flow diagrams, suggesting a perverse convergence between information science and blood ritual. Dr. Holloway felt the terror settling in. The technology was modern, but the content was primitive, violent, and ritualistic. 2. The data vault and the anomalous skull. In the center of the chamber, on a pedestal of brushed steel, were two artifacts that revealed the chamber's purpose and the identity of its builders. The digital codex, Project Mirror. The first artifact was a futuristic-looking digital storage unit, the size of a brick, built with a ceramic and fiber optic compound. Agent Smith identified it as a third-generation solid-state drive, technology that was only available to elite intelligence agencies or highly secretive military research consortia in the 21st century. The content of the drive was dumped onto a secure cryptographic analysis network. The disk contained a single project called Project Mirror. Goal of Project Mirror. The project was a detailed record of a consciousness or memory cloning experiment that spanned 20 years, with a total of 158 test subjects, identified by numerical codes instead of names. The goal was to transfer the mind of a dying subject to a cloned biological host. The record included the complete neural mapping of the subject's brains, which consumed 150 terabytes of data space. Give it a like, subscribe, and share. The ethical failure. The researchers' journals, who were not government scientists, but a private consortium of 6 individuals, detailed the catastrophic failure of the experiments. The consciousness transfer was technically successful, but the cloned body could not assimilate the old mind without going through a period of intense psychosis, rapid physical deterioration, and violent madness before collapse. The subjects of Project Mirror not only died, but unraveled in a state of terror. The purification ritual. The project's final journal described the closure of the chamber, the obsidian and polymer concrete, as a purification ritual and a containment seal intended to lock away the residual energies of fear and chaos that, according to the researchers, had accumulated in the chamber during the deaths. Dr. Holloway understood the horror of the Chamber of Silence. It was not a military base, but a time capsule of an ethical and biological failure that had been magically sealed with rituals and technological isolation. The skull and the biological error. The second, most disturbing artifact was a human skull carefully placed on the pedestal, right next to the hard drive. The skull was examined by a forensic scientist in Oregon. The conclusions were terrifying. Age and modification. The skull belonged to a young woman, about 20 years old. But bone analysis revealed abnormal density and structure in the temporal bone that did not correlate with any known pathology or race. The bone exhibited an unusually symmetrical molecular structure, almost as if the bone matrix had been synthesized or genetically modified. The therapeutic hole. In the center of the frontal bone was a perfectly circular hole, half a centimeter in diameter, which showed no evidence of being made with a drill or a weapon. Dr. Holloway and the forensic scientist agreed that it was a post-mortem or perimortem at the time of death, modification for an unknown purpose, possibly to release energetic pressure or the soul, an echo of the biological mural. The chronological error. Isotope analysis of the skull and carbon-14 dating yielded a date that broke the chronology of Project Mirror. The skull was too old. The woman had died more than 300 years ago, in the early 18th century, a period where cloning technology was impossible. The conclusion could only be one. The woman was not a modern cloning subject. She was the source of the biological information or the original host for the experiments. The builders of Project Mirror, from the 21st century, had found a 300-year-old bone with a biological anomaly and had used it for their cloning experiments. 3. The federal reaction. The fear of legacy. The finding of the Oregon Chamber and Project Mirror triggered a crisis of terror, not for what the future might bring, but for what the past and present concealed. The US federal government and intelligence agencies reacted with a panic deeper than any foreign threat. The woman's identity, the fear of ancestry. If an elite private group from the 21st century had based a consciousness transfer experiment on an anomalous skull from 300 years ago, this meant someone had known about that biological anomaly for centuries. This pointed to a secret society or a hidden lineage operating outside of US history, a legacy of genetic knowledge that must not see the light of day. The existence of a 3-century-old bioengineered lineage on American soil was an existential challenge to the nation's origin narrative. The lost technology, analysis of nearby lab remnants, not in the chamber, but in ventilation tunnels, revealed biological processing technology that had not been publicly recorded. The discovery threatened to expose the true extent of clandestine US research into cloning and neuroscience. The decision to bury the horror. The final decision, made by a top-secret committee of the Pentagon and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, was unanimous. Project Mirror must die in the silence of the Oregon forest. The official version, Dr. Holloway and Agent Smith were forced to sign a report stating that the site was an advanced clandestine methamphetamine laboratory that had been destroyed by an explosion. The concrete slab and titanium lid were explained as an attempt to contain chemical residues. The destruction of evidence. The anomalous skull and hard drive were transported to a containment laboratory in New Mexico for continued analysis, but only for government use. The mural, the obsidian, and the chamber were destroyed with specialized explosives and permanently sealed with 1,000 tons of reinforced concrete to ensure no future geologist or archaeologist could find the anomaly. Dr. Vivian Holloway left the Valley of Silence with the terror of knowing that she had not found a crime of the past, but a harbinger of the future and the secret of an elite faction that believed in the transfer of souls and had used modern science to perform archaic rituals. The Oregon forest became the silent monument to the madness of science without ethics and the fear of a government to face the biological legacy and the hidden history of the United States. Give it a like, subscribe, and share.